Hello and welcome to this episode of the Ultra Films YouTube channel. My name is Dylan, also known as the Resident Expert, and I'm here to talk to you about episode 1 of season 4 of Stranger Things, the Hellfire Club. In this episode, we start off with Dr. Brenner going into a flashback of Dr. Brenner going into the Rainbow Room to go talk to a test subject number 10. And he goes over to him, sits down next to him, asks him if he's ready for some more experiments. And the kid seems to be actually pretty happy about being singled out by Dr. Brennan. And wants to participate in the experiment. He has a magic 8-ball. It seems to be one of his favorite toys, and he shakes it when Dr. Brenner asks him if he's ready to, and it comes up with signs point to yes. This is kind of a funny parallel because if you've ever opened up a magic 8-ball, it's actually a 20-sided die inside of it, kind of like this, with each side saying a phrase on it. Another little nod to Dungeons and Dragons, which are all over this show. Not necessarily nod, because Magic 8 Balls are very popular item back in the 80s, but it is just funny that they decide to use the Magic 8 Ball, which has a D20, which happens to be part of the main story-centric type deal of Stranger Things relating to Dungeons and Dragons. But they go into a little room, and Dr. Brenner puts headgear on him, starts asking him questions like, where is this person, what am I drawing, that kind of stuff. And in the process of doing this, they start hearing screaming. And Dr. Brenner gets up, tells number 10 to kind of stay there, and is looking at the door, and as he's looking at the door flies at him and hits him in the head, and knocking him out, and in the process killing 10. He gets up and starts walking into what is known as the Rainbow Room, and finds 11 surrounded by dead bodies, covered in blood. Her face is covered in basically blood tears, blood coming out of her ears, all over, just crazy, blood everywhere essentially. And he asks her what she's doing, and that was the opening sequence of this first episode. We then get to Elle that has been writing a note. Has been writing notes to Mike, and it's Mike reading the note and Elle explaining how her time at California has been doing, saying that she's got all sorts of new friends and she's really excited to see him during spring break, which is coming up in a couple days. And Mike is supposed to come out there and see her. And she finishes off the letter saying, "Love, Elle." During all this voiceover that we hear, Elle is kind of being shown that she gets picked on by one girl in particular, that everybody else kind of joins in because she's a popular girl. Kind of shitty things that happen in real life. But after that little scene, we go to the kids, the rest of the kids, back in Hawkins, and we find out that they have joined a group called the Hellfire Club. Mike, Dustin, and Lucas is presumably in it, but we see that Luke is actually part of the basketball team now, and they're doing a pep rally The new captain of the basketball team, his name is Jason, is doing a pep rally talking about how they just finished beating a team coming down from halftime by 10 points to win the game, using these people that died during the Starcourt Mall fires in the previous season, in season 3, using their trying to use their deaths as a way to motivate the team. Ultimately, he's a very charismatic person and is able to get everybody chanting with him and really excited during this pep rally. And he kind of uses that again later on in the series, which we'll go over when he gets there, or when we get there. But we then get to Mike and Dustin talking to Lucas about how they have the campaign at the end, or the last game of their Dungeon Master Eddie's campaign coming that night. But that night is also supposed to be the championship game that the team had just got into. So Lucas isn't going to be able to make it. Asks Mike and Dustin to try to postpone the game. And we then cut into go back to California. We see Joyce getting a package from Russia, and she gets really worried, and she opens it right away, finds a doll inside, and calls Murray, our resident Russian expert, I guess. He's also a conspiracy theorist, and we see him just getting done at a karate practice. He's now a black belt, which comes into play later in the show, which is kind of cool. But he tells her that Joyce should smash the doll because it's supposed to, or it could have a bomb in it. Turns out that it's just got a doll, or just a piece of paper inside of it saying that Hopper is alive and to call this phone number. We get back to 11 school, and she's supposed to have it, or do a presentation on who her hero is, and she has to go up after the bully Angela. Elle ends up doing hers on Hopper, her dad. Everybody seems to know that Hopper is dead in the show, which is kind of a little weird that they would pick on her so much for choosing her dad as her hero, especially since she gets so visibly upset when they start kind of picking on her while she's trying to do her presentation. And after the presentation is done, she kind of runs out of the room, and but she gets upset, and Will kind of follows after her, telling her that it's not that bad, which it really wasn't. But when somebody's super upset, you saying that it's not going to be that bad doesn't help. But she is walking outside after that with her diorama that she had of her house where her and Hopper lived, and Angela trips her, and Elle gets upset. Angela's boyfriend and boyfriend's friend stomps on her diorama, makes fun of her one more time, and Elle gets up, and she's so frustrated that she tries to do her psychic powers at Angela, which ultimately don't work because she lost him. And as this kind of happens, the teacher shows up and asks Elle if she's okay. She's going by Jane, by the way, now. But she asks Elle if she's okay, and she just kind of says, yeah, I'm fine, I tripped. And then she looks over at Angela, and the teacher connects what happens right away because Angela, like, she's seen that Angela is a bully to her. She even just ruined Jane's slash Eleven's presentation, or not ruined, but made it worse than it was going to be. And takes her to the principal's office, presumably, for some kind of repercussions. While this is happening, we see Max going and talking to the school counselor, and as they're getting out of the bathroom, or not the bathroom, sorry, as she's going in and leaving, a girl, Christy Cunningham, is leaving the room, and she's visibly upset. She's clearly, like, distressed, and Max notices this and then walks into the counselor's room, has a conversation with the counselor, tells the counselor basically everything's okay, nothing's going on anymore, she's not having headaches, like, she's not having, like, nightmares anymore, so on and so forth, like, she's telling her that, like, she's doing fine. And as she's leaving the counselor's office after this happens, Lucas had noticed her walking into the counselor's office and goes over and tries to talk to her again. We find out that she had broken up with Lucas, and Lucas is trying to, make a connection with her again, asks her to come to the basketball game, hands her a ticket, tells her that, like, he can tell that something's wrong with her and that she needs to find something that she truly cares about. This kind of upsets her because she thinks that it's supposed to be about Lucas, and Lucas is like, no, it's not about me. Like, I just feel like you're kind of a ghost walking around the school. Like, something is wrong. Max tells him that everything's okay and, like, pushes the ticket back at Max and enters into the bathroom, and then to kind of get away from Lucas. While in the bathroom, she pulls out a big bottle of Tylenol and takes one of the Tylenols, and then looks in the mirror. She hears Christy throwing up inside of inside of a toilet. I kind of feel like this is a nod to maybe Christy have been pregnant, and it's something that she was hiding. She was also dating the school captain of the basketball team, Jason. So, like, maybe this is something that she was hiding. She had stress, so on and so forth. Max, trying to be a good person, goes over and asks if she's okay. Christy tells her to leave, and so she does. Max does leave, and after this happens, we hear for the first time a little combination of, like, our villain of this show, who's been dubbed as Vecna, and she has, like, a big psychic episode, or not psychic episode, psiotic episode, where she starts hearing her mom telling her that, like, it's okay, we'll readjust this dress, it's gonna look so nice on you, and that's kind of another reason why I think she may have been pregnant, because like, you don't adjust things unless you're starting to gain weight. I think she also had some form of, like, childhood trauma around her parents, or maybe even her mom, like her mom is overbearing, something. But we don't necessarily, like, figure out what's going on with her. After that, we see Mike and Dustin going into the cafeteria, and they're going to try to talk to their dungeon master, Eddie, who is a senior this year. Again, it's their last night of Hellfire Club as a unit, and it's like the end of the campaign. So they kind of sit down. Eddie's reading a article about how Dungeons and Dragons leads to cult fanatics and all sorts of, like, demonic stuff. It's was very popular opinion back in 1990 or 1986 that Dungeons and Dragons was satanic worship, and so he's getting all revved up, and they find a spot to kind of wiggle in and be like, oh, by the way, Lucas isn't going to be able to make it because he's got his basketball game. And Eddie is like, ooh, really? I'm in. And he like starts going off on a little tangent, and he goes, how about instead of trying to reschedule the game, we just find somebody to replace him? And so they start kind of going off trying to ask anybody who they can to find a spot for Lucas in the game. A little bit weird, but like high school last game, I kind of get it. Like, you're not going to want to try to reschedule over one person. Like, maybe if it was like 4 or 5 of the people, like, you might reschedule, but over just one person missing it for something that nobody else deems important besides for the one person who's missing it, I get it. Like, it sucks, but I get it. So then we leave that scenario, and we see Chrissy leaving the bathroom after having her little psychotic episode, and go to the woods. We see her kind of look at a lone picnic table in the woods, and she's standing there alone in the woods, and she has another kind of episode where she sees a grandfather clock just like up here on a tree, and she walks over to it, and black widows emerge out of the clock, like and she gets freaked out and starts like kind of running back, like taking steps back, and she runs into Eddie, and Eddie ends up being also a drug dealer on top of being the dungeon master for the group. We find out that Eddie's not that terrible of a guy at this point. Like, he's kind of a cool guy. Like, I started really turning around on him, like, at this point, because you see a little bit of goodness in him. I mean, he's selling drugs to somebody, but he's got a good personality. And she ultimately asks him if he has something stronger instead of pot, because he was just going to sell her pot. It kind of cuts from there, and then we have a really cool like dual parallel scene after this, and it's the championship game happening, and the Dungeons and Dragons game happening at the same time. We find out that the person that they found to replace Lucas was Lucas's sister, and she ends up being like somebody who actually knows how to play Dungeons and Dragons really well. Her character's name is Lady Applejack, I believe. And she's like a 14th level rogue. She's like trying to explain to Eddie that like she belongs there, despite being an 11-year-old. And it's kind of funny because at one point in time, like, they take a time out and are trying to mull things over, and Eddie goes, "All right, gentlemen," and Lady Applejack, like, he has, like, she gained his respect with the like way that she talked to him, trying to explain that she was there to play. But the cool thing about the game, and like the basketball game and the Dungeons and Dragons game, is that like every time that they kind of rolled the dice in this scene for the Dungeons and Dragons, something was happening in the basketball game where like somebody just scored a point, or they just stole the ball, or something is going on. So it's kind of like every time they roll the dice, it's affecting the basketball game. So it was kind of a cool parallel there. during this timeout that I had mentioned a little bit earlier, we find out that Dustin's character and Lucas's sister's character are the only ones. Erica. Erica are the only ones that are still up, and they have only 12 hit points left, and they got to figure out how to defeat this person that they're fighting against. And when they're kind of at the start of this game, Eddie's like talking about how like there's these cultists that are around, and he's talking about how a zombified looking kind of man steps forward, and he's got a missing left arm and a missing left eye, and at this description the whole table erupts, and what, Vecna? Like, he's supposed to be dead. Mike actually chimes in with a joke that's from the style of Dungeons and Dragons they play. They play what is called Advanced D&D or AD&D. It's kind of like the second edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and it's notoriously like in the community known as a really hard game to play if you're playing a wizard, and Vecna is supposed to be a wizard. So like the joke that is said in the game is he was supposed to be killed by cats, and it's kind of funny because like cats do a 1d4 hit dice worth of damage, so a 4-sided die that has 1 through 4 on it, and wizards at first level only have a 1d4 hit die. So if you rolled really poorly on your hit die, you could only have like 1 health. So a cat could feasibly come up to you, and if they hit, kill you super easily. And that's kind of why like it's kind of hard to hear while it's saying it, but it's really funny. While they were like in this campaign, and kind of like chiming in over each other, but ultimately they are like rolling the dice, having this dual parallel with the championship game. They take their break. They try to figure out if they're going to defeat Vecna or not. Vecna only is supposed to have 15 hit points. The 2 players that are left are supposed to only have 12 hit points. Essentially 1 attack each, otherwise Vecna's going to kill them, and they need a critical hit, which is a 20 on a 20-sided die to kill Vecna. So like Dustin takes the dice and he rolls, and while he's rolling, it shows the Jason, the captain of the basketball team, saying, "I need to take the shot. Like, I need to be the winner or the hero of this game." So he's like, "Whatever you do, get me the shot." So like they pass him the ball and he takes a shot. It cuts back to the dice rolling, and then it cuts back to him having the ball hit the rim and then go up and ultimately bounce out of the hoop. And then it shows Dustin's dice landing on an 11. And then it shows Lucas like grabbing the ball and getting out of the little bit of players that were there, running, turning, taking a shot. And this is Lucas's sister Erica's turn to roll the dice. And she rolls the dice, and it rolls a natural 20, which is exactly what they needed to kill Vecna. And Lucas's shot hits the rim, but instead of bouncing out like Jason's did, it goes in, winning the game for them. And then this ends up being like at the same time they finish the campaign and they finish the game, as everybody's leaving the game. Everybody that was playing the D&D game is also leaving, and Lucas realizes that they had found their replacement in his sister, and they weren't there watching the game for him. They ended up playing the Dungeons and Dragons game. So instead of going to go talk to his friends, he goes off with his new basketball friends to celebrate winning the championship game. After this, we see Eddie pulling up to his trailer, because he lives in a trailer park, with Christy with him. And they walk into his trailer, and she asks him about about Special K, which is ketamine, if you guys don't know. Something that's just going to help her take the edge off of it. As Eddie is looking for the Special K, Christy has another psychotic kind of episode when and she ends up kind of floating in the middle of the air, and Eddie comes in after finding the Special K, really trying to wake her up, starts freaking out, panicking, going, "I don't like this, come on, Christy," and he's trying to clap in front of her, kind of gently shake her, anything that he can do without really harming her, because I'm imagining he's really scared her having an episode. Anything that he could do could end up making it to where if he hurts her, he'd get in even bigger trouble. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because her body ends up levitating up into the ceiling and then start breaking, and her jaw snaps, her arms crack in different angles, all sorts of stuff, and her body ends up just looking mutilated, and then it falls to the floor. And that's kind of where we end the episode, after Eddie running out of there and kind of getting into, or no, never mind. He does not we just end the episode there. I kind of want to talk about some of the Dungeons and Dragons stuff. I kind of already did, but more or less the villain of the show, Vecna, or who they're calling Vecna. And actually talk about how well they ended up doing some of the parallels with this Vecna and the traditional Vecna. So Vecna is a lesser god or a demigod now in Dungeons and Dragons. He is a lich, which is a spellcasting, a high-level spellcaster. Generally a wizard, but they're undead. They have a really, really great power. They have to undergo a ritual to gain the ability to keep their mind when they turn into an undead, and be able to keep their wizardry powers and all that kind of stuff. And if it's not done right, then they can turn into a whole array of different kind of undeads, but their main goal is to become a lich that keeps all of their mental powers, as well as gaining the ability to not ever really die. He has a few different kind of titles, Vecna does. And I'm going to go over the titles that kind of make sense with this show. He's got more than the ones that I'm going to say, but with the ones that kind of make sense with the show, because we've already seen it, I've already watched all the 7 episodes, so I'm just kind of giving the ones that he does have, and it feels like they're the ones that the show is really trying to drive home, is their idea of what they were going to use. So his titles are the Master of the Spider Throne. That is the Black Lotuses, or not Black Lotuses, Black Widows that we saw crawling out of the grandfather clock, and we do see it a couple more times in the episodes coming. The Whispering one. This one is every time that he tries to kind of attack, or starts a psychotic episode with somebody, you kind of hear him like talking to them. It starts kind of low, and then it's kind of a more dramatic way of talking. The Lord of the Rotted Towers. This one won't make sense until later on in the show, but I do want to point it out now. The Chained God. This is kind of won't make sense, at least at the start, but when he is more shown, he has these tentacles that like go into him that could be representing chains. And then Lord of the Hand and Eye. The only reason why this one kind of makes, or the only reason why this one I feel is important is because it's important to the character Vecna. He is, of course, the Lich, but when he was killed by his subordinate, Kos, which was mentioned during their time when they were trying to talk about, or like explaining like Vecna and how he died, somebody did say, but Kos killed him. But he had lost his left eye and his left hand. And this is kind of important because in the game of Dungeons and Dragons, you can find these items, Vecna's eye and Vecna's hand. Your character, if you wanted your character to do it, could rip his own eye out or cut his own hand off and try to pop in the eye and or hand onto their own hand. By doing so, you gain some powers of Vecna. You have to make saves or have your character be able to withstand being taken control of, essentially, by Vecna himself. It's a lot harder to stop this from happening if you have both the eye and the hand. A little bit easier if you only have one of each. But Vecna's kind of personality, it parallels pretty well with who ends up being the villain of this show. But he's obsessed with finding people's secrets, so he can use those to control their wills, essentially. We kind of see this with the people that he ends up attacking. They're people that are trying to hide secrets. Christie's whatever it ends up, or whatever it was, just kind of like either some kind of trauma with her mom, or if she was trying to hide that she was pregnant, which I think is what it was. But that secret, Vecna was using it to get to Christie. And we see it with a couple other of the people that he ends up killing in the show. But he uses... but he wants more power so he can try to become a full god again, and rule over whatever lands he's in at the moment. He is prone to intense bouts of rage, and he wants to kill other gods to gain their power. And this is kind of important as well with future episodes. Some of the powers that he has is that he can paralyze somebody with just their touch. We kind of see this a little bit in the show, but it's more of like a mental thing, and not like a touch thing. He can cast powerful spells. That's something that the characters say in the show quite often, that he's casting a spell when he's making somebody go into their psychotic episodes. And then he can alter reality at will. And this is easier on people that he knows secrets about, because he can make what they're seeing feel more realistic to things that are going on to them. He can perceive things around him within a 10-mile radius, And then he can also use his minions that he has out and about to perceive things as well. We do also see this in the show, so like they do a really good job of making his powers translate well into the TV show. And then he can also feel when a secret is being revealed, as long as that secret will affect 500 people or more. And then the most important items besides for Vecna, of course, are his hand and his eye, which I've already talked about, and then the book that he created called the Book of Vile Darkness, which is very similar to like the Necronomicon. If you know what that is, it's like a book that's bound in human flesh. The Book of Vile Darkness in particular is a book bound in human flesh that also has demon bones like on it. There's 6 real books of Vile Darkness, and then like 18 or so fake books. As far as I know, it doesn't come up in the show, but it's just kind of a cool thing. But that's kind of this breakdown of episode 1. There's not a lot of like D&D references, but there is. I was ultimately very happy with this episode in the way that they did like the Dungeons and Dragons correlation with like the basketball game. I really liked that scene. The one thing that I kind of didn't like was that when they were actually playing the Dungeons and Dragons, there was multiple points where you can hear them rolling like 2 or 3 dice in their hands, but when they like toss the dice out, it's only 1 die. Or when they are rolling the dice, it's dice that don't make sense for the occasion for them to be rolling the dice. So there was a point where they rolled like a D6, a D4, a D8, and I guess there's like an attack or something, or like attack or weapons that would theoretically use that, but just from my knowledge of Dungeons and Dragons, you're not ever going to roll just 1d4, 1d6, and 1d8. So it's just kind of like, I wish they would have looked into the rules a little bit better of that and made the dice rolling a little bit more accurate. Is it nitpicky? Yeah, but I mean, when you're doing a game about Dungeons and Dragons and you have people who play it watching it, they kind of will nitpick it, and that's kind of what I'm doing. But like I said, ultimately I was very happy with the episode. I've been extremely happy with the show overall. Super excited to see what else is left. If you have any questions, let me know. Write them down in the description, or not in the description, down in the comments. And I will answer them for you guys. Remember to like and subscribe, and follow our social medias, Ultrafilms on all of the platform, or Ultrafilms HQ on all of our platforms. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you. Bye.